Okay, before I let this episode roll, I need to say this first because I know exactly how this can land. This is where body recomposition can go completely wrong, and it's why many of you end up frustrated. You're working hard, you're being really strict with your food choices, trying to make sure that everything you do is in line with your goals. You want to look lean for summer, you want to feel good in your pants again, and you want to actually see results. But it always feels like things just aren't happening as fast as they should, or you just keep fluctuating up and down, never really seeing the definition you want. Even when you do lose a little bit of weight, it's like you can never get rid of that last 5 pounds, that last 5 kilos, just that tone that you want to see, the definition, the shape. I am not being at all anti-fat loss here, but some women do need a fat loss phase. Some women are ready for one. Some women can absolutely use one right now, strategically. But what I'm talking about here is the very thing that happens every single time summer shows up. Your whole brain just changes. Summer does something really weird to women. And it's not just the season, it's also the narrative around the exposure of skin, the environment, which just amplifies this. The shorts come out, the holidays get closer, you feel hotter, puffier, stickier, heavier, more exposed. You try on something you haven't worn for a year, and then suddenly your brain is like, right, cool, work harder, track harder, drop calories, add cardio, anything that kind of makes you feel like you're working towards this fat loss goal. It that's the hard part because it feels like you're in control. It feels like it's a strategic plan. And it does actually seem really logical when you think about it because your brain is telling you you're uncomfortable. It's worked before. You felt in control, you felt quote unquote good. But the part of, that I really want you to listen for in this episode is around if fat loss right now is the phase your body needs for the real results that you want. It's not about, do I need to lose fat? It's about, am I using fat loss to solve a building problem? Because that is where body recomposition gets messed up. You keep trying to reveal a body that just needed more time to be built. That's the part I want you to keep in your head when you listen to this, because it's almost turned into this bulk cut cycle or this, you just need a slight deficit and build muscle at the same time. And somewhere in between that, there is, oh, okay, cool, summer shred, where there has never really been any time spent actually focused on building muscle. And that's the thing, because that logical part of your, well, that emotional part of your brain is more arguing with itself over it being logical. But it's not, because dieting gives you rules. It gives you a target, it gives you a plan, it gives you something to control. So it does feel immediate, clean, productive. Okay, I'm back on track. But there's a layer underneath this that you can completely miss. And that is that the diet isn't always about the body, it's about the emotional relief of feeling like you're doing something when everything just feels wrong because it's not what you're used to, and it like that's what we're taught is the answer. But you can't diet your way to a body that does need more muscle, and it's really hard to make progress when feeling better is only attached to the scale going down, to the assurance of your usual progress metrics, making you feel like you're on track. But what is on track when we are never actually taught that the body that we want, it's reliant on how you are training? Because every single time you jump into a 6 or 8 week challenge just to tighten up for a holiday, you're completely abandoning the long-term goal of building a robust, resilient physique that actually looks how you want. You aren't strategically planning for the body you want in 5 years, let alone 3 years, let alone in like, let alone in 2 years when you can comfortably say, maybe not even 2 years, like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But one thing I will tell you is, even though that seems like forever, how many years has it been you trying to get this tight look in your body, this confidence where you don't need to diet every summer because you're summer ready year round? You're not this fluctuating year because you've learned how to continually be progressing. And that's where the whole like glorified bulk and cut cycle comes in. Because every single time summer comes, all that's happening is you're getting pulled back into the same cycle, trying to reveal what needed a lot of time to build. And that's what I want to talk about here. And I also want to talk about what's actually happening in summer for your body to feel the way that it does, and why it can be very misleading, like biologically, because there are some biological reasons why your body can feel way more different and you can feel like you're puffier or holding more or whatever else it is, because that matters and it will help you choose the right decision when summer does come around or when you want to do your next cut, because you're going to be going on holidays, wearing more exposing clothes. And this is the hard part too, because it's not just about your brain screaming, I need to get back in control when you feel exposed. It's the discomfort of uncertainty. You're not used to doing things this way, where you're eating more food, you're not feeling as restricted, you're not monitoring everything as much. We're taught that it needs to be this granular, this hard for it to be working or effective. But when we are culturally conditioned to believe that any feeling of exposure we have to restrict. That's what the magazines taught us too. But now, so many fitness influencers, I said this so often before, we don't really recognize until we're on the other side. Like, I didn't really recognize. And it hit me when one of my clients said, wow, it's funny how now all of a sudden I'm seeing all these red signs, these red flags in the people that I used to love on Instagram, she was referring to. They diet more than once a year. They're dieting down every summer. They're always talking about being on a diet. They're calling themselves fluffy during the winter. Oh, I'm building. Look at my butt. I'm feeling a little fluffy butt. And I didn't notice that, like that stark difference between how my client once saw them, how I once saw them, to how I see them now as well, because I notice that all the time. And to me, that's the biggest coaching win. When you guys see through this BS, because the reality is, if you are doing body recomposition correctly, you shouldn't have to pull the trigger on a deficit every single time December or June, depending on which hemisphere you're in, comes around, because you're not supposed to be gaining excessive amounts of fat and fluff. But also there is the way that we perceive ourselves. And that's what I want to talk about here, because the old response of cut, track harder, add cardio, get control back is not serving you. It isn't, because you don't just want smaller. You want lean, you want defined, you want strong, and you want confident year round. So that being said, let's get into the podcast. And let me tell you what is actually going on underneath. Because what happens to your body in heat isn't just you're hot. Your body sends way more blood to the skin to cool down. And because of that, your limbs can feel tighter, fuller, heavier, sweatier, more swollen. And then when you're hot, that's like a stress on your system. Your digestion changes, your water retention changes, there's more fluctuation. And if you're adding in hormonal shifts with that, if you're eating out regularly, there's the differences in the food there, the digestion there, if it has more salts in it. What's your training like? Because now that is also going to be increased with the blood volume and the glycogen, because now you're amplifying that heat environment. And the skin actually expands a little as well, because it's trying to cool down. So all of these different things are making you feel bigger, puffier, stickier, and it's not comfortable. I tend to feel heavier in summer too, although training is very sticky in summer. I'm not a fan because I don't like being hot and bothered. And some people think that sweating is the best thing in the world in the gym, and training really hot is the best thing in the world in the gym. And your body actually can't give its best efforts. We have a higher perception of effort in heat. So many weird things happen within our body when it is hot because it doesn't want to get out of its physiological range. And that can feel really real in our bodies. And this is important because if you don't understand it, you can immediately think that you've gone backwards even more. Another overlooked element is when you are eating out more, going to barbecues, slacking a little bit on the food. And if you're someone who drinks alcohol, all of that plays a role as well. And feeling out of control of what you're doing and not feeling like you're being strict enough can make you want to tighten up more, can make you want to track harder, add cardio, clean it up more. So again, it comes to the question of, are you actually choosing a fat loss phase because it's the right strategic move? Or are you just reacting to that discomfort and that lack of showing up for yourself the way that you should and being too loose and not feeling happy with it? So we need to keep that in mind and realize that we're seeing ourselves from our same critical lens that we've always seen ourselves, and that we experience emotions and feelings that we just automatically make into facts. And those old identity scripts amplified with feeling more visible, it isn't comfortable. So this is what the podcast is about, because what is the actual end goal here? Not how small do you want to feel or lean you want to feel being the word, or what weight you want to get to, because it's really hard to make progress, like I said, when feeling better is only attached to the scale going down, especially if you're over 35 or 40. Because in that stage where your body doesn't seem to respond the way it used to, the answer isn't always another cut. That's pretty much what most women over 35 have been doing their whole lives, because that was in back then. It wasn't all around muscle building and training and getting strong and lifting heavy weights. And that's the part that is missing from how you actually want to feel and look. And if you keep, I know I say this over and over, but it is so important, but if you keep going into another deficit to reveal something, 8 months is not enough to build something that you actually can be proud of. It isn't, because it all comes down to the training, and there are training skills that take a lot of time and patience to learn too. Without that, you're not going to be able to continually progressively overloading to build the muscle, to build the strength that you want. And we're never taught the connection between the body we want and that, because it's not as sexy or exciting. It's not something that can really sell to most people. But toned isn't a diet outcome, and it's not a number on the scale. It's not what you get from losing fat off a body that hasn't been properly trained. Toned is visible muscle plus low enough body fat, yes, but it needs enough muscle first, and that is a completely different process than losing fat, and you can't build that in a deficit. It's hard enough to push yourself to true failure when you don't have enough fuel there or recovery. And who wants to live on 1,400, 1,600 calories, even 1,800 calories, when you could be eating 2,000 and 2,200 or more, depending on you? Like a moderate deficit. A lot of people think that body recomposition is just dieting slower or being safe with calories and just not panic cutting or crash dieting. It's not. It's eating enough, fueling enough, doing what you can to optimize for performance, eating to optimize for performance, for muscle growth. That is the most important part. If we keep relying on fast feedback, wanting to see our bodies change straight away, that's even less possible if you keep trying to do both at once. That is the main crux of what I want you to understand around this whole temperature change, this whole exposure change. I don't want you to see this as, like I said, anti-fat loss. There are people that need this, but not when it's the automatic response to discomfort, because you're just going to keep getting the same disappointing results. There was a little interruption, so I had to pause the podcast. My dogs needed attention. However, as I was saying, it feels logical when you have a target, when you have rules, when it feels like you're working towards something that feels like a plan. But that is the solution that we've been doing for long enough, where okay, I see many women, they've been dieting on and off for years, trying to lose that last bit, trying to see some type of shape. But the part that is always missing is what these shreds and panic shreds and summer exposes all the time. Exposing the same problem being when you put yourself into a lower calorie range, or your focus is still so much on, I can't wait till my next diet, and you're treating this maintenance phase, this eating more phase, as like moving away from the goal, or just a temporary thing where you're doing this, I'll use the word thing again, this thing where you're taking a quote unquote break, a remission, intermission from dieting. But really, this should be the main course. This is the main course, because have you actually built enough muscle? Is your training actually creating the stimulus for what you want to see at the end of a dieting phase? It's kind of funny where you end up, if you do this the right way, with building muscle, actually focusing on what matters in training, through training, you realize that doing body recomp the right way, eating more food, training consistently, progressing your lifts, eating enough to perform, optimizing for performance, spending a meaningful time at least eating at maintenance with a program that is tailored to you, with the progressions as well, and not just randomly changing the reps or changing the exercise or being bored, it ends up giving you the result that you kept trying to get through dieting, struggling through miserable calories, restricting yourself, feeling like you're missing out. And this time around, you never really had to do that. It was just a matter of being okay with the trade-offs you had to make, and that you are going to need to push yourself in your training. You're going to need to work harder at the exercises. And I do not mean that you're just going to be like dying through your reps and suffering. Because a lot of us end up, well, we, funny enough, sometimes do that anyway and feel the burn, smash ourselves, feel exhausted at the end of the sessions. But that is not the same as effectively pushing ourselves harder through the sets that we're doing in an effective way, which many of my clients have had to be okay with the fact that they needed to ask for more recovery. Because at first they could handle quite a bit because they weren't training effectively. And then as soon as through the process, after a couple of months of working together, they started actually training effectively, putting in not just let's hit 10 to 12 reps, let's just be okay with the bottom rep range, or go into a set with a rep number in mind, instead actually pushing themselves to effective stimulating reps. They ended up needing a lot more recovery. They stopped doing the excessive cardio and their bodies actually started to respond. Because I know it's when I started getting spammed with selfies. Oh my God, look at my biceps. I got some definition. I can see a line there. Look at my legs. My quads are actually showing. That's wild. I haven't seen that line before. Ruby, what is this? And I was like, what do you mean? It's your quad and hamstring line. And I mean, like, what's this muscle? Oh, you got another little one bobbing there. It looks like your TFL has a little bit of separation from there. And it gets exciting when you start to see all of these. You get to see your hard work pay off. Like, nothing is more satisfying than that. And you're not going to get that if you keep cutting this phase short, because the body that you want to feel confident in summer isn't going to be built in a summer shred, and it's not going to be built in the 8 months outside of that. You have to be okay with saying no to at least one summer shred, 2 if you can. And I also have to add on to this that it's not about just eating more and hoping for the best, because you need to learn how to build a body that is something to rebuild. And that's where the training comes in. That's where eating enough protein, using carbs to train properly comes in. Holding at maintenance for long enough, tracking your performance the right way, tracking the right metrics, and not going back to, oh, I think I need to take progress photos every week. just so I can feel like it's motivating for me. It's this for me. It's this for me. I'm like, okay, is that an emotional response? Or are you actually basing that off something that is going to get you the results? But at the same time, I don't expect you to answer that question, because how can you know what the right metrics of progress are to focus on when no one's been teaching this stuff before, and many coaches don't know how to guide, especially online, women through effective training, because it takes a lot more work back and forth. I openly say I don't really know how to correct this one. If I don't know what you're feeling, we need to have more back and forths. I encourage a lot more communication, because I'm not going to just assume. In form check videos, I want to ask the questions to make sure that I'm giving the right feedback, because I don't want to correct something that could make something worse, because everyone's body mechanics are different. And that's where personalized coaching comes in, and that's where the results come from. And that's why I value communication so much. And it gets to be exciting, because you get to realize and tune into yourself, like, holy shit, I'm feeling my lats for the first time in my cable rows. These cable rows are so effective. Cable rows, funnily enough, has been the topic of many of the check-ins lately. Like, so many clients are finally feeling that, and their RDLs, which I'm freaking loving. So we went through why summer creates like this emergency feeling, and that it's not always proof of your body retaliating in the wrong way because of the heat, because of all the things around the summer culture. We mostly talked about why it keeps backfiring, because nobody got their dream body from a 12-week or 6-week summer shred. Sure, it might feel good in the moment, and you can lose a little fat off your body, but it doesn't mean that you're going to end up with the body you're picturing, and most times it doesn't. Over time, that amount of smallness you achieve reduces, as in, like, your body starts becoming less and less responsive. Not only do your hormones shift, your metabolism will drop, and I can go on and on and on, because we all know the hormonal chaos that happens once you enter perimenopause. And that is going to make that stomach gawk that you do even louder, more emotional. And this is where we need to have those right scorecards that I was talking about, because scale down is not something to rely on at all in a body recomp phase, and nor are your passport prison-like robot photos, because our bodies are not just standing like this. That I hate progress photos myself. Like, I mean, like, I hate looking at my progress photos, because if I'm not intentionally trying to contort my body, I don't have a waist. I swear that up here where my boobs are, like this area, is slightly bigger than my waist, but that's lats as well. And I have a really big rib cage. And that's something else to take in mind. Like, we all have our bodies different in that way too. And that's why you build what you want to see. I'm building an hourglass to make that different. And I want my lats to be bigger. See, I still don't like it that my rib cage can appear bigger than my hips. It's just, I've always had an issue with that, but I'm less obsessive about that now, because I can't change that. But what I can change is, how big can I grow my quads? How big can I get? How juicy can I get my glutes? How juicy can I get my shoulders? Because that's what matters. That is the real question we need to be asking. Are you building a year-round body? Or are we just going to keep playing react to summer? 5 seconds of summer. 5 reactions of summer. Wait, no, 5 emotions of summer. The shots come out. We feel sticky. We get emotional. We feel fluffy. Can we make that a song? I'm sorry. I feel like we needed to add a little bit of humor in there, but it's because I know how uncomfortable it is already, but we don't want the 5 reactions of summer. Reactional energy versus buffer room. Because when you live in a constant state of reaction, dieting every single time you see a bad photo, every single time you feel uncomfortable, and I know how easy it is to want to diet and tighten up your calories every single time you see a bad photo or an unflattering reflection in the mirror, in the car windows. And if you listen to my episode with Leanne, she said herself the best thing that ever changed for her. And oh my God, this was just mind-blowing for me. Mind-blowing. because it hit something in my own head. I'm like, holy shit. I think that is what changed everything for me too, because I remember there was a period of time where my belly was the worst thing in the world. And I'm not even talking before my journey. I'm talking about in the middle when I actually evolved. And it was only a few years ago. And that's because I had a huge yeast infection and my belly was actually like I had the bloat that comes from it. And because of that, I kept gawking at it and obsessing over it and I made it a thing. And I never really changed all that much except what was around me environmentally and emotionally and tried to stop focusing on it. Plus the fact that I moved houses. And funny enough, there were mirrors 24/7 all around the house. And I was obsessed with seeing how big this problem was that was diagnosed as SIBO. And that's the hard part. Wait, no, it wasn't SIBO. I'm sorry. It was Candida. Candida. They thought it was SIBO, but it was Candida. Regardless, this feeds into this topic actually, because it's what I was going to go into. I actually had to go on a low carb approach for that because a lot of the carbs, and by low carb, I was meant to be eating like 50 to 70 grams. I couldn't get my carbs below 150. Bro, I love my food. I could not get them below 150 for the life of me. And I could not get my fats up to match it because I don't like how my body feels on fats. So I refused. But regardless, it was the worst because my body composition got worse. I got harder on myself. Training became a dread. I didn't want to go to training. I ended up crying in training sessions. And that's where this backfires. Because this right here is the most important part. And I'll actually bring in two clients an example that will make you think a little, as I'm sure you can relate. What happened with me was exactly that. Your training ends up getting harder, your energy drops, your performance shrinks, you're not able to give your best anymore. And in that whole process, not only is the summer shred putting that building phase on hold, but it's actually putting you in reverse. It's erasing a percentage of those efforts. If you even built anything in the interim, that's part of the parcel of if you're just playing safe and doing a slower deficit or keeping your calories low because you don't feel like you've earned them through being lean enough, dieting hard enough, seeing the results you want. A lot of women still keep their calories lower than the actual range that would produce the best results, body composition wise. And this is the pivot that I'm trying to get to. I don't want it to be a don't diet conversation. That is very different from what I'm saying. That's what many of us have been doing our whole lives, or at least not actually doing a proper building phase. And that's why the summer shred pull feels so logical, because we feel like that we've done it all and we're still not seeing what we want and we feel like this is it. That's the hard part. You continue looking at your legs. Why don't they look lean? You look at your stomach. Why isn't it more toned? Haven't I built enough muscle already there to reveal? I thought I'm already training, training hard. I'm lifting heavy. I'm trying to increase my weights. I'm pushing myself. But the question nobody asks is, are you actually training in a way that creates shape? Are you doing the movements properly? Do you know how to brace, how to lock your lats? That's what I'll be getting into in the next episode, and why it can feel so alarming for petite women, shorter women, women going through perimenopause, because it's not always the same experience for you. And most women already have zero metabolic buffer to enjoy their lives because they haven't done body recomposition, as in they've never taken their time to build their maintenance calories up. They've never built up their metabolic capacity to enjoy summer, to enjoy their lives, because it's always this reactionary cycle. It's always responding to the industry. So you end up having to navigate summer on poverty macros, miserable, stressed, missing out on memories. Maybe it's not that, but it is a summer full of self-judgment or wanting to show up in photos, or showing up in photos and then judging yourself like a critical eggplant. Which, if you know me, that's my thing, like being a dickhead to yourself. Like, don't. Because the body you want, the confidence you want, the pride that you want is achieved, is built through building a lifestyle where your body has the muscle and the metabolic fire to handle all of life's variables, especially as you age, when it does get harder. And because it does feel harder and it does feel more impossible, we're more inclined to do the absolute opposite. And I think is it Big Bang Theory? Is it Friends? I don't know, the TV series. But someone showed me this really awesome clip when I was getting mentored. It stuck with me, and I found a book that's similar to it. Whatever you think, do the opposite or something. The guy was failing on dates, so then his mate said, "Oh, just do the opposite." So he took the opposite approach to asking for a date, and he actually got the date. So sometimes we have to do the opposite or do the complete reverse of what we're doing in order to get the results we want, because obviously what we're doing isn't getting us there. And it's one of the most terrifying things for a woman who's been chronically dieting and feeling like her body is now physically expanding. I had a client, like I said, who immediately started panicking the moment that she tried on her shirts because her bra area was tight. That's something that we don't usually connect with. But that's where your lats are. And my response to her was, "Oh, yay, congratulations. It's the first time in our life. I bet you that you've been feeling your lats in your workouts." And she's like, "It's kind of crazy, but yes, I didn't think of that." And if you want that coveted hourglass shape, understanding this is important because that's how you're going to get the illusion of a tiny waist. And it doesn't look like bulk. It just feels like, oh my God, this area is tight. And that's another important element to remember, because we're going to be putting on more of these tighter clothes in summer. That's why it feels like this emergency. And I feel like it's a super important thing here to mention, because we do not want skinny fat. We don't want to keep ourselves in the same cycle. We want to actually get ourselves out of the diet loop once and for all. I am pretty damn sure. So that is my message to you. And on a final note, I know it might feel like you're not getting listened to, you're not getting heard. Oh, you don't know what I want. You don't know the ideal look I have in my head, because of the way that we've been taught how to get there and how we logically, I just did like quote marks with my fingers for those of you that are listening in audio. We logically think that what we are doing is the right way. What we're being coached through, what we're being told, what we're being challenged with is a complete opposite, but it is the way. My client said that in the podcast, Leanne. If you want to listen to that one, like I said, the body you want is not just a fat loss outcome, and summer shreds aren't going to give you the lifelong satisfaction you're after. It's just going to keep leaving you in this reactionary cycle. So what I want you to start doing is asking yourself those questions. Have you built enough muscle to reveal? Like, be specific, not, yeah, I want to build it. No, I want to build muscle in my legs, in my glutes, in my back, and my shoulders. What does it take to actually do that? And then break it down from there so you can focus on the right things. Because doing mostly cardioing and dieting doesn't build muscle in those areas. Just eating protein and eating more food doesn't do it either. Is the logbook changing from 6 months ago? Have you actually spent enough time at maintenance? Not just 12 weeks, not just mini bulking. Are you aware of all the patterns that I mentioned in this podcast? We don't want another backfiring event. We want a catapulting event where we keep moving forward. And this is when you actually start allowing body recomposition to happen. That's where the magic happens. So before you get pulled into another one of these, I just saw a terrible photo of me. Oh, my shorts feel tight. I'm feeling a little softer and a little fluffier. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself, what is it that you actually need to be doing to get the results that you want? Have you been showing up for yourself the way that you said you would? Because we know that how uncomfortable that can make us. And I know that it can feel like, quoting Leanne as well, it was all about that bloody fat loss phase. I just wanted to get this belly fat off. If you don't find a way to enjoy the process of building muscle, of chasing your best self in the gym, you're not going to build the muscle, and you're not going to build the definition, and you're going to just keep asking yourself to reveal something that you're never giving it enough time to build. So I hope this helps, because it's not just about another bloody fat loss phase. So I needed to give that one context. It's about building a body for life, building a body that sticks for life, and feeling proud that you did the hard thing because now you're on the other side and you're so thankful to yourself for sticking it through. You can't diet your way to a body that does need more muscle there. If this is you and you're working towards a body composition goal, you want to look tighter, leaner, stronger, you want more of that shape and definition, you want to look like someone who is fit and athletic. And this shit matters because you can logic yourself into anything because you feel a certain way and because the environment amplifies it even harder. And that's why summer can be one of the greatest sabotages of body recomposition goals. So I want you to ask yourself those hard questions. And if any of this hits home, shoot me a message on Instagram and we can have a chat and see what's missing from your muscle building playlist. I will talk to you and you'll hear me in the next episode.